Is this season 2? Have I been on hiatus? No, I've been working very hard. As you will see if you skip to
26 minutes and 58 seconds.
Hello there, this is Greg Johnson making, and I'm making a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. A long, long time ago, I decided that if I ever got to episode 42, it would be themed around The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. One of the many stories within the story is that some scientists develop a giant supercomputer to figure out the answer to life, the universe, and everything, and after millions of years, the computer reveals that the answer is 42! They then have to build a much bigger and more sophisticated computer to figure out the question to life, the universe, and everything. A computer you may recognise, but I won't spoil that. It's a nice twist. Hitchhiker's Guide started out as a very innovative, groundbreaking and influential radio show in 1978. It very quickly became a best-selling book. It was then a TV show, there's a bit of film of it, there's a stage play, there's a computer game, and there's a fan club. ZZ9 plural Z Alpha, issues 50 and 47 of the fan club zine. I had my artwork in these in 1993. Twice in 1 year, not to boast. Actually, no, I am boasting. To boast. This was a huge pillar of my childhood imagination. When I was about 10 and I first heard the line, "The ships hung in the sky in much the same way that bricks don't," that blew my tiny mind. I thought that use of language was so playful yet descriptive of how the ships shouldn't be there, and I just remember pondering that and thinking, I want to be witty like that. When I grow up, did I achieve it? I don't know. But we aspire, we reach for wit, don't we? The first ever Hitchhiker's Guide I made was a plastic Top Trumps box with the rubber button panel from a calculator stuck to it, but I think I can do better. There have been many different designs of it over the years. Are any of them completely definitive and accurate to the book? No, because that's impossible. Page 24, a device which looked rather like a largish electronic calculator. This had about 100 tiny flat press buttons and a screen about 4 inches square. And not that I am a precision-demanding language pedant, but on page 45, a screen about 3 inches by 4. So 20 pages later, the screen is no longer 4 inches square. I want my UK £4.50 back. But that's the joy of it, there is no definitive design. I think the important thing to remember about Hitchhiker's Guide is that when it was invented, a small rectangular thing which fits in your pocket and contains millions of, megabytes and megaquads of information was the stuff of a madman's dreams. For example, in the TV show, the tiny colour screen on the prop had to be created using a film projector. So the object of the guide itself has a very different meaning and purpose and symbology in the world of smartphones. Even in like the movie they made with Martin Freeman, in that one the screen folds in the middle. At the time, that was a futuristic impossible thing, which now isn't. I like mine to have buttons. I'm a retro sci-fi nostalgia guy, as you may have noticed if you've watched any other episode on this channel. So I've gone with clicky buttons, because who doesn't like to push clicky buttons? So in 3 chapters we're going to make the buttons, which is a, believe it or not, more than 2-year saga, which I'm hoping is going to be more interesting than it sounds. Then we're going to make the body of the beast, and then we're going to make the cover. That must be enough preamble. Let's open it like a book. Well, do I? I've got lots of fake leather, some scraps of real leather, some book backing material, kitchen drawer liner, various coating cloths. This very specific W.H. Smith calculator, my mother-in-law's old phone case, obviously. My phone, obviously. This is from an electronic picture frame. This is a picture frame I got free in the free bin at a local charity shop. This is a magic box, which apparently turns your phone into a miniature cinema. These are some retro bike handle grips. This is a lenticular reading magnifying screen. And these are all my printed out buttons, and then I've got various files, boxes and folders from which I will make the cover. I'm starting with one of the alien alphabets from Futurama, because I thought this had a sort of universal, play, pause, stop, fast forward, that kind of language-free directional button symbology. Have we already used the word symbology? Twice, why not? Wanting chunky, clear buttons with nice rounded corners, I chose this W.H. Smith brand desktop calculator, hoping that these buttons would just have a sticker on the back that just came off, but it wasn't that simple. So this is nail polish remover pads, as you can see on there. These are my hands, that's a cotton bud, and I'm wiping the number and the whiteness off the back of each button and then quickly putting them into hot soapy water. Here's me to fill you in on why this took 2 years. We'll begin with a recap and reminder, more for me than for you. So this is a project I started over 2 years ago. Why I dated the back I don't know, but how very thorough of me. So 2 years ago, my Hitch-Hiker's Guide was going to be made from an electronic picture frame. There was some reason I wasn't using a phone. I think it's how rubbish my phone at the time was. My phone is still secondhand rubbish, but it's better rubbish. So I got as far as figuring out how to clean the numbers off the back of these clear calculator buttons. And then I did all this R&D for how best to attach the decal to the back of the clear button. Printed on gloss paper, held on with double-sided tape, held on with 5-minute epoxy, Tamiya plastic cement, extra strength double-sided tape, which is thick like gummy tape, then printed on matte paper, laminated with sellotape and held on with 2-part epoxy. These were different shades of black, but then obviously one of them wasn't a monochrome black, it was full of bluey green, so that bled out. It just bled out. We couldn't rescue it. And this tester from the 19th of June 2023, remember then, is I think the clearest clear winner I've ever seen. So this is black, printed on glossy photo paper. One of them is laminated just with a bit of sellotape, and those 3 aren't. And they've gone brun. You wouldn't think it was this complicated, but apparently it was. The one clear adhesive I didn't test here, which of course I'm now a dab hand at, is UV resin, which I think is the one I'm going to use. Bit of noisy construction outside. Sorry. I'm sorry. So yeah, that's not really why it took 2 years. I just stopped doing it for a bit and decided, episode 42, let's push it on down the line. Here we printed out the buttons again. I've laminated them with sellotape and stuck each button on individually using UV resin. And here I'm using coloured card to colour in the little buttons. Ignore all this because I'm going to redo them 2 more times. How and why? I think that's a teaser. Like, why on earth would I do these buttons twice more? We interrupt this broadcast for an important button update. Having already made these buttons twice, the reason being that I tried sticking the button onto the paper then cutting them out, which in some cases slightly prized the sticker off the back of the button, so I thought, well, let's just see if the better way to do it is cut out the paper, then stick each individual square of paper onto the back of the button, so at least I've got 2 versions of each button. I can use the neatest one. This isn't a complainy button update. I'm just saying that I've made a choice. The choice is this. White buttons on the cheapest or thinnest paper that we have in the house, because I always knew there should be some kind of light other than just the phone. Even though the buttons are mounted on this silicone thing, which ideally would be clear and then they would light up a lot more, it does show through the thinner parts of this button mat, so it's just going to be a subtle glow underneath the buttons. However, the black buttons are printed on thick, quality cardstock, so light doesn't show through them at all. Also, I was going through my drawer of lights and I found that. This is a selfie ring light that attaches to a phone that I bought ages ago. It can pulse, it can strobe, it can do various things. It's going to be a pretty faint and distinctly circular glow, but I'm going with white buttons, so they glow a bit. See, I don't really have strict deadlines, so if I see a better or more perfect way of doing something, I just think, nah, go on, do it. Yes, in the end, the cheapest and thinnest of papers, laminated with sellotape, cut them out individually, and assemble the buttons one by one. This pinchy, spring-loaded, clacky picture frame I found in the free box outside a charity shop we started going to, which was great. Lots of proper cheap junk. These are retro bike handle grips that you need if you're making a retro original style bazookoid, so I've got some spares. I wanted my guide to have the vibe of camping equipment. A thing you can drop, like a drill battery or a torch or just something that's designed to be sort of slung around a bit. Not unlike my actual phone, which has a chunky rubber black. I know my aesthetic. This black frame, there's also a white version that came with the electronic picture frame that I made the original guide out of that I put on Instagram 2 years ago, are the only bits of it that I still use, but they're just useful frames. And this is a magic box. Open the magic. At Disneyland Paris. How do you magic? Will you holiday? So yeah, this is a piece of cheap plastic tat, which is, and I just love this thing. It's like something out of Brazil, Terry Gilliam's Brazil. An extending box into which you put your phone and it magnifies it, and it's just like being at the cinema. Just moving my parts around and assembling them and thinking, that's it. But how can I cut things in a lovely straight line? Hooray, I bought a table saw. One of those little hobby, and I love it, and I love it. I do. Really, one of the many actual reasons I delayed this project is just not having a good way to cut nice straight lines. I mean, look at that. Cutting along the white line of that I nearly said Skeletor instead of calculator. That's fun. Cutting along the white line of that calculator key plate very neatly. So I do love this thing. It was worth it. Using pre-cut bits, this is the solar panel window off the calculator. Just putting 2 little Lego feet on it so it sticks flat, and then here using my lovely new table saw to cut out some sides from this frame where the handles go in on one side and they disappear underneath the calculator keys on the other. For an electronic thing, it's very sort of wood and hot glue on the inside, so I'm just putting on a little bit of square dowel, I think, just for the screw with which I'm going to hold on this grey picture frame. I decided to leave it grey. There's very few things that I paint on this prop, so things are the colour they are, mostly, which is nice. Super glue to stick on the cut in half bike grips, and then, as I say, hot glue on the inside. The inside's just lots of hot glue and wood blocks and split pins and junk. Making the end walls for the top and bottom, this is just boot Lego. Stick it together, cut the nubbins off, sand it down, and you've got a nice easily buildable wall. Fill in the back with a bit of laminated wood, and now I'm just using some plain wooden dominoes. I mean, I'm not proud of what the inside of this looks like. It's a film prop. It just has to look good on screen. It's really liberating to make a film prop. So I'm just sticking wooden dominoes inside with both wood glue and super glue to raise the phone up to the right height. Then filling in that little rectangular solar panel window with something a bit techy. So this is a bit of frosted plastic bookmark, I think, some liney greetings card packaging, and a little strip of green lighting gel. And then I'm just using the plastic from the box that the calculator came in and holding it all together with sellotape. I don't know, is it shoddy? I'm hoping there's a bit of a process with my videos where you see how something's done and you think this isn't going to turn out looking very good, and then at the end you say, hey wow, it did turn out looking very good, even though he just used regular glue and stuff. I could do that, and I'm just a regular person, not a YouTube maker like he is. And are these greeblies? I think greeblies are on a miniature thing, but anyway, these are just details. So again, using some of Freya and Daryl, thank you Freya and Daryl's, little Lego pieces to fill in some gaps. And then there's a block that needs covering, so I'm sticking on little squares of this textured fake leather stuff, because I also want it to slightly have the look of a camera, a Minolta or a Leica camera. So once it's set at the right height, just using my Lego jig to make sure it's in straight, but I'm just sticking the phone holder part onto those wooden dominoes with lots of super glue, and I think I squirted some hot glue underneath as well. Just room for the selfie ring light. So I need to cut a half circular hole in the back so that it will mount to the back, and also you can get into it from the back and charge the USB port. And the back of this thing, it looks fine. It looks fine, in the opinion of Mickey Mouse, apparently. If you want a light box or the inside of something to glow as much as possible and bounce light around, paint it white. I'm also using white stickers to cover the black battery window. So just white it up on the inside. Super glue around the ring light frame. I think I've quite crudely sort of snapped the clip off the back there. Then that pushes exactly into that hole and it's in. These are little tongue depressor lolly stick shaped bits of, I think they're sort of very compressed card or paper. Again, we're making things from junk, so it's not designing something in Tinkercad and printing it out. And I'm not being snooty about 3D printing, I never am. But for me, it's those moments of, oh, that fits. Oh, that's good. Oh, ooh, that thing I had for years actually was the perfect thing for this thing. That's the thing I get a kick out of. So stuck 2 of these together. I'm now laminating them with my new favourite thing, black masking tape, and then stuck it onto a bit of card with a sausage of blue tack so you can paint the edges, and I'm just dappling it all over with Mod Podge and black paint mixed together to create an imitation of that bumpy leather texture. I would argue an almost indistinguishable imitation. That's not for me to say. Anyway, another thing that just happens to be the right width is these large, are they tongue depressors? I think they're just called giant craft sticks. Using those to fill in the sides around the phone. There's me and my wife with an alpaca at a wedding. And because this phone holder is exactly, in fact it's slightly too wide, I'm cutting the ends off but keeping just enough of the corners to hold the phone. And just testing that that is indeed what I have done, which it is, indeed. Mitre shears. Probably could do with a new blade in that, but yeah, nice straight line. Stick those sides onto the Lego walls, I think, and then I'm using, as I say, very little painting on this prop, so I'm using aluminium tape just to cover that edge, and then around most of it I'm using strips again of this PVC or polythene or whatever you make fake leather out of, so it has that old-fashioned camera sort of vibe. In a world of smartphones where technology being small or thin is no longer impressive, let's go with something a bit chunky, something you could bang a nail in with. So we're doing the small calculator buttons because originally I filled them in with coloured tape and bits of cardboard. So cutting out tiny holes in my various lighting gels, I'm sure you'd have noticed the blue light on my face has a tiny hole in it. Sticking those onto the back of the buttons with a tiny dot of UV resin, which can only be set with the gift of very intense purpleness. When you dismantle a calculator, you'll find that when you take the back off, you lose all the structure which holds the buttons against the, what I'm calling the key plate. So what I'm doing here is making a plastic copy of this circuit board, then I'm copying the holes that fit onto the pegs so that I've got a back plate which will push the buttons up against the key plate of the calculator so they don't just fall in. You know, so it's complicated. Whatever you do, it's more complicated than you think. Has making anything ever been more simple than you expected? Here, finally, after a lifetime of waiting and dreaming and hoping, we're assembling the keys, and isn't that nice? Here I'm sticking on the front with a strip of that leather, just lots of super glue. It's a very simple, very crude hinge, so you can just open it, put the phone in, and it shuts again. And then tidying up the back using carpet tape and super glue to attach bookbinding sort of cloth paper. Cut out a little square hole there for the USB port. As with anything made from found bits, there will be gaps to fill. So here it's the gap at the top of the keys where you can see down into the body of the guide. So I'm cutting out a strip of quite thick acrylic from a picture frame which I've sanded so that will diffuse light. Then a clear white cable tie to give it some lines and texture. And then another moment that I wish you could get these perm clips in black, because it would be a thing I didn't have to paint. I thought, ooh, if you could look down there, there would be a row of lights that all changed colours, and yeah, I love this ring light. And a row of lights looks like it would light up in order when it's charging or something, so it looks like it has purpose, but yeah, I love this ring light so much. Black cable tie and some silver nail art tape. Can't even remember what... Oh, that's to tidy up the line across the top of the keys. So just using the end of a craft knife, just scratch the plastic so the super glue will hold. You can tell that using smooth plastic is not my usual métier. Is that the right word? I think. I like industrial and rusty, whereas this is quite neat, so it's a bit more nerve-wracking to make. This, as I said earlier, I mentioned Terry Gilliam's Brazil. I just want the screen to look like an old sort of CRT television, just not as good as an iPhone screen. Now that you can have a perfect screen, you've got to pick a character for your guide screen. And I want it to look very thick, again, so it has a slightly hefty, unbreakable quality. So I've bought a lenticular magnifying screen, which when you tilt the screen, it gives it a nice warp. A go-to greebly, half a push button. I might use these in everything I make, because it just looks a bit like a charging port, doesn't it? And that is a funky bit of metal with some holes in, which again looks like some sort of charging connector or has purpose. This screw, I kind of wish I hadn't put this screw in, but once the screw is there it needs covering, so I bought the smallest metal star I could find, which is an ear stud. And I thought a little star would be cosmic. Then to hold the guide into the cover, magnets can mess up screens and batteries, and so Velcro. This is industrial Velcro. It is self-adhesive, but I don't like being told what adhesives to use. I can use my own adhesives, thank you. So super glue and 2 big strips of tough Velcro. Let's have an intermission. The Babel fish. For reasons that will become clear, I wanted to make a Babel fish. This was a super quick 1-hour build, and it's made entirely from plastic plant parts, stamens and anthers and petals. I don't know if you know this, but the Babel fish is small, yellow and leech-like, so I'm giving it a long tapered shape. I got sent some free stuff. So thank you to TT Combat, who sent me some lovely coloured primers that you'll see in an upcoming episode, and also just some paints, and they're beautiful. Their Spotlight Yellow spray primer will become very important to the project, capital T, capital P. little sticky fish eyes, and then I thought rather than trying to hide the wire that mounts it into the bottle, just stick it on a pin that has a big round head, stick that tail into the lid of it's just a little travel shampoo bottle, stick that in with lots of super glue and baking soda, then I gave it a skin of 5-minute epoxy, and then I'm just teching up that bottle with, there's a piece of a toy telescope, the silver bit is the end of my Ghostbusters Neutrona wand, and then around the cap I've put a bit of mesh door repair tape. I've stuck a hexagonal hand cream tube lid onto it and a little hose clip. And then I made the bold choice to fill it with Listerine. If you're going to put your Babel fish in Listerine, and I wouldn't bother because on screen it looks like the bottle's empty, don't do it 3 or 4 days before the shoot, because does Listerine make the paint and the glue come off? Yes. So I did have to repaint the fish and then just top it up with Listerine right before the shoot, and then drain the Listerine out after the shoot to keep him all right. I thought this faintly blue liquid would, yeah, does smell nice though. And that's how to make a Babel fish. The Hitch-Hiker's Guide to the Galaxy has the words "Don't Panic" inscribed in large friendly letters on the cover. Large friendly letters. Here I've got various different wooden fonts. This is R&D, this is just testing. I'm now coating them with Mod Podge and water and sticking on some fake leather, some papery leather, sticking it on with Trim Fix adhesive because I've seen Epic Upcycling, who's one of my favourite YouTube channels. He uses that to line things and stick cloth onto stuff very firmly. And I thought, well, let's just try it out. And in my opinion, it didn't really work how I wanted it to, so I'm going to do imitation leather effect painting instead. An old photo album about the right width and depth. I really wanted to use an old chunky VHS tape box, but it was just slightly not deep enough. It wouldn't shut with the guide in it. These letters, I like them, but I'm just enlarging some of their holes with a craft knife. Be careful. I'm shouting that back into my past, be careful. So I'm all out of T's because I used them on my Would Thou Like the Taste of Butter, the witch artwork. Make a T out of a couple of eyes, and then I made an apostrophe. These are dried out wet wipes. Pull all around the edges. You want the edges to be raggedy so you don't get a straight line, and then just sticking on with a mixture of Mod Podge and water, and then I'm skinning over that with some scrunched up tissue paper. And then I'm skinning over that again with some scrunched up tissue paper. Put that either in front of a heater, or I think I just put it out in the sunshine, and as I've said many times before, Mod Podge dries like that. Just holding down the edges on the inside with some brown paper tape and then stippling. Cover generously and then stipple some texture into a thick skin of Mod Podge and brown paint, which I'm dappling all over with a sponge on a stick. Sponge brush is a nicer term than sponge on a stick. Or is it? Is sponge on a stick more friendly? Anyway, really nice tip if you're making imitation leather, sand it. I just thought I'll hit it with some wire wool, and it just not only flattens down all your raised up bumps, but makes them matte, so you get this mottled, slightly gloss, slightly matte, and that's the first time you think, maybe this can look a bit like leather. It's plastic leather. It's not fancy sort of alien leather. It's a cheap wallet. That's the sort of vibe we're going for. I thought maybe like a wallet it should have a little strap to pin it closed. So this is from an old satchel. Coating the inside with some of this black pleather held on with carpet tape, and then attaching push buttons with every bit of strength in my feeble frame. During shooting this did pop out. The back of the button came out of the back of the prop. There are 4 or 5 spikes on the back, and when you press it with the pliers, those spikes fold in like staples. I thought I made the cardboard thin enough on the back there so they would go all the way through, and I protected the back of the button by covering it with super glue, but it still came out. I didn't need to tell you about that failure, but we're all about transparency here at Greg Johnson Making PLC. Then I had what I thought was a good idea, metal corners. I wonder if you can buy metal book corners. Of course you can. Bought some of these, and because shiny silver things always look too new, just again hit them with wire wool because they were a bit chrome before. So I'm just sticking those onto the corner with super glue and using lots of super glue and also carpet tape to put this bookbinding cloth paper on the inside, which looks fine. It looks fine. As I said before, it is self-adhesive Velcro, but I don't trust the adhesives of others. So I'm just covering it with super glue. This was an idea I had, if I had a little metal Saturn, I could use that as the logo that you generally get at the bottom of the spine of a book. This was, I think, an earring, using my snips to remove the earring loop and using my rotary tool to very gingerly and carefully, whilst also keeping it in frame just about, and neaten that circle and tidy up those little shards. Nice. And that is the finishing touch. This thing was made over a period of weeks. In between all these shots, I was making loads of other things too, which very shortly, as I keep promising, it will become clear why. As with the guide I posted to Instagram 2 years ago, I was going to use this BAFTA-winning, I believe, animation from the original TV show made by Rod Lord's animation company, because it's just so great. But if you make your own guide and you know how to animate, maybe you should just animate your own guide entry as well. I very rarely draw, but sketchbook out, blue pencil, so you can go over it with a black line and remove the blue in Photoshop later. Then once I was happy with those drawings, just took photos with my phone, took those photos into Photoshop, made them very high contrast, removed the blue lines using saturation and contrast and exposure just to get rid of the blue, so it's just a black line on white, and then I applied a cutout filter. Because I wasn't particularly happy with my line work, it felt a bit like pen on paper, which is what it was, and cutout just gives it an angular... Yes, I really like the effect. It just put my drawing through a process which gave it a slightly more computer animated, not drawn by me vibe. Then I was happy with my drawings. Invert the drawing so that they're white on black, delete the black so it's white on transparency, and then just go through and make all the images I need to illustrate the points made about Vogons by the wonderful voiceover that was wonderfully recorded by the wonderful Rachel Parris, which was wonderful. And now, ladies and gentlemen, and finally, I keep talking about where have I been for the last 2 months, like everyone's been looking for me. I've been very busily making... Let's take a look at the finished thing.
I bought some peanuts.
What?
We've just been through matter transference. You've lost a lot of salt and protein. I mean, the beer should have helped cushion your system a little bit. How are you feeling?
Like a military academy? Bits of me keep passing out. Ford, if I were to ask where the hell we are, would I regret it?
We're safe.
Oh, good.
We're on board one of the spaceships of the Vogon constructor fleet.
There's obviously some strange usage of the word safe I wasn't previously aware of. What are you doing?
Looking for the light.
How did we get here?
We hitched a lift.
What, just stuck our thumbs out and some green bug-eyed monster popped his head out and said, "Hop in, lads, I can take you as far as the Basingstoke roundabout."
Well, the thumb's a sub-ether device and the roundabout's Barnard Star, but otherwise that's more or less right.
The bug-eyed monster?
Is green. Yeah.
Fine. When can I go home?
You can't.
Oh, God. Is this really the interior of a flying saucer?
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, it's a bit squalid, isn't it?
Well, this is the Dentrassi sleeping quarters.
Dentrassi? Not Vogons?
No, the Vogons run the ship. The Dentrassi are the cooks. They let us on board.
I'm confused.
Here. Look at this.
What is it?
The Hitch-Hiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That'll tell you everything you want to know.
I like the cover. It's the first helpful thing anyone said to me all day.
Oh, that's why it sells so well. Alright, so, index. Vogon constructor fleet. And...
Vogon constructor fleets. Here is what to do if you want to get a lift from a Vogon. Forget it. They're one of the most unpleasant races in the galaxy.
Not actually evil, but bad-tempered, bureaucratic, officious and callous.
They wouldn't even lift a finger to save their own grandmothers from the ravenous bug-blatter beast of Traal, without orders signed in triplicate, sent in, sent back, queried, lost, found, subjected to public inquiry, lost again, and finally buried in soft peat for 3 months and recycled as firelighters. The best way to get a drink out of a Vogon is to stick your finger down his throat, and the best way to irritate him is to feed his grandmother to the ravenous bug-blatter beast of Traal.
Strange book.
I'm researching the new edition. Yeah, I came to the Earth for a week, got stranded for 15 years.
Yeah, and it's a silly question, but what am I doing here?
Well, you know that I rescued you from the Earth.
What's happened to the Earth?
Well, it's been disintegrated.
Has it?
Yes, just been bored away into space.
Look, I'm a bit upset about that. What the hell's that?
Listen, that's the Vogon captain.
I can't speak Vogon.
Right. You'll need to have this fish in your ear.
Fish?
Yes, only a little one.
Looks that we have a couple of hitchhikers on board our ship. Hello, wherever you are. I just want to make it totally clear that you are not at all welcome. When the search party finds you, I shall throw you off the ship. If you're very lucky, I might read you some of my poetry first.
So there you go. Turn my house into a spaceship. Thank you to Tom Bell, who came up from London, to Adam and Jack, who came over from Hartlepool, to my wife, obviously, to Rachel Paris, and just... yeah, if you've got a dream, you've got to do it, haven't you? Life is short, and I have dreams. Why make a fan film? I used to be a bit funny about fan films, because I would think, well, if you're going to put all that effort in, just write your own, make your own thing that you own the rights to, which I don't. That is just purely a tribute to the work of Douglas Adams for fun. That's why. And until I had my very, very beloved patrons, no one wants to pay me to make a spaceship set, but they did, and they do, and they have. Nothing was stopping me, so I did it. If you're here and you watch these episodes and you like this channel, then you probably like things that are handmade by people. And I hope the value of that short film existing is it puts a bit of human creativity and fun into the world. You know, nothing in it was generated. It was all made by people with a great deal of love and not very much money, and blood, sweat, and no tears. Lots of sweat. Tiny amount of blood. But yes, it was just made by enthusiasm, which I find incredibly humbling. You say to someone, do you want to do this? There's no money or glory in it, is what I always say in my emails. And they just say yes and lend their talents so that that thing will exist. And I hope that's a celebration of something, of imagination and fun and life itself. If you would like to watch that short film again, and why wouldn't you, in 4K, glorious 4K, my first ever 4K video, there is a link to this below. Enjoy. And remember, so that's how I made my Hitchhiker's Guide. Very proud of it, very fond of it. My next 2 episodes will be how I made the Vogon spaceship, my favourite miniature thing I've ever built. And then the one after that will be how I turned my house into a spaceship, which was a wonderful, fun saga, and as I say, a lifelong dream come true. Thank you with all my silly little heart and soul to new patrons Reese Knight, Angie Hughes, Fat Jabber 74, Zoltan, Marek Scarpa, Bayek, Matthew, Gerval or Gerwal, Bernadette, Martha B, and J-Dog. And Dan Fry. Folded hands emoji. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching, lots of love from me, and I will see you soon. If you've watched this far, the secret word you might like to use in a comment below is fish.
Fish?